Hey everyone, welcome back to the Not Your Average Co podcast. I'm your host, Angelica, and here with me today we have our Chief Financial Officer, Josh Bowling, but we also like to call him JB.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me today.
I appreciate it. This is my
first podcast?
First ever podcast.
Nice.
Couldn't be more excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Good morning, sunshine.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's get the show on the road.
I think to set us up for this conversation, I would love to, kind of just get an overview of your career, what you majored in college, and kind of like the steps you took to get to where you are now.
I always knew that I was naturally inclined to math early on when I was a kid. So I kind of knew it from the get-go. And always had an affinity for an accounting, as nerdy as that sounds. Mm-hmm. And so majored in accounting at UNF, did my undergrad there, and then went back and got my master's of business administration there as well. So I'm a double Osprey.
Nice.
And started my career not too long after I went into public accounting. I worked for KPMG, and then worked as... Typically with public accounting, you either realize that you're going to make a career out of it,
right,
or you're going to get out as soon as possible. I took the latter route and got out as soon as possible. So I went to work for a client, a real estate company. I worked there for about 10 years.
Okay.
And that was prior to me joining CSI. And I've been at CSI for, it'll be 4 years in October.
Nice.
It seems like it's gone so quick. And then I've been the CFO for about 3 years now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have loved having you here.
I appreciate it. Love it. Couldn't think of any other place I'd love to be.
So going off of that, it's graduation season. What advice would you have for professionals, for anyone starting in their career?
It's I've had a few family members that have sent me graduation pictures and announcements, and so it's an exciting time. I remember being a young graduate and trying to start off your career, and it's extremely exciting, but also nerve-wracking.
So daunting.
There's so many different things going on.
Right.
The biggest thing I can say would be, if you found a job, and whether it's something that you think is going to be your forever job, or, hey, I just need to start paying bills, my first piece of advice would be ask questions. Mm-hmm. And we have an internship program here. I always love it when we have meetings and interns will ask questions, because they're asking about things bigger than what they're currently doing. But it would be ask questions. And the second piece would be ask for more. So if you're given a task and you complete that task, go ask for more.
Right.
And that sounds so basic, but I think it shows an urgency. It shows that you have a work ethic, that you're willing to complete things quickly. And this is a piece of advice that I got early on in my career, and I'll still stand by it today, is get there early, leave late. If you've ever been in a work environment, you realize that the people that get there early always complain about the people that get there late.
Yep.
The people that stay late always complain about the people that leaving at
early.
5 o'clock. Why don't you just be in both groups, and then no one can complain about you.
No one can complain. That's good.
But that was something that, I think early on when you're starting out, that you have to really instill that work ethic. Right. And you need to exhibit it to others. And so arrive early, stay late is just a quick and easy one for me.
Absolutely. I heard that too. And it was, you should be there before your boss and let your boss see you still working when they leave. So that is good advice. And did you see yourself making it to a CFO position when you were younger? Was that your end goal, or?
That was my end goal. And I think when you start with the end in mind, things become a little bit more achievable if you have certain short-term goals to get there. But I think starting out, we were just talking about graduation. It can seem daunting when you're starting out as staff level position.
Absolutely.
And then trying to get to one of the higher offices in a company.
For sure.
And so the steps along the way, I thought I could get to. I thought I had the skills to get to. But what you learn is, one, I've always appreciated the journey as opposed to the destination.
Absolutely.
And I think that was one of the things that really prepared me for what I'm in now. And I could tell you 3 years ago when I first took the role, I've learned a ton.
Okay.
And probably wasn't as prepared as I thought I was.
Right.
And so someone told me, and I think this is true, the older you get, the more you realize you don't know. And the younger you think you know everything.
For sure.
I was completely thought I knew everything. And then you realize that you don't really know as much as you did.
Yeah.
And so it allows you to take a step back and allows you to become a little bit more humble.
Right.
And get a little bit more perspective. But,
Yeah.
it was, I count it as a blessing to be a CFO for CSI. And so I try to show that appreciation each and every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I do think that learning environments are very good, and especially the culture here is you might be in a position where they're empowering you to, do something that they think that you can do, and you get this little imposter syndrome for a little bit. But so there's no doubt that you're successful. I mean, you made it to a C level, you're a leadership at a major organization. How do you measure success both professionally and personally?
I think the professional side on the business side is a lot easier
For sure.
to measure, right?
Yeah.
There's key performance indicators that you can clearly see if your company is performing well,
Right.
whether it's revenue, profit. We use conversion ratio as well. But those are much more measurable.
Mm-hmm.
I think the personal side is much more subjective.
Yep.
And so for me, just from a personal standpoint, I try to ask myself questions along the way. To me, having joy in life it means you're successful.
Right.
Right. It's more of a state of being versus, happiness, which is much more, dependent upon your circumstances.
Right.
So do you have joy in your life? This sounds very simple, but do my wife and my kids want to spend time with me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or are they just unbearable, right? Are they just saying unbearable for them to spend time with me?
Yes,
I should say, I'll clarify, right? And so I think, and am I putting them in an environment where they can thrive,
Yeah.
right? And so I think those are just quick measures of success for me. The other thing that I would say, am I being true to my own self,
Mm-hmm.
right? Am I exhibiting the behaviors that, one, am I practicing what I'm preaching?
Right.
And I think if you are, I think that's a level of success. And
Right.
so I've never been one to say, financially I've got to have this, right? Or I've got to have this position,
Right.
or I need to have this house. I think those material things are great, and I don't want to discount them. But, I think if you get too caught up in those, you'll completely miss the journey.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'd rather appreciate the journey along the way.
For sure. You're
Yeah.
such a wealth of knowledge, and I think it's so cool, hearing just what you say, your little tidbits of, inspiration, I think is really fun to hear. So what about work-life balance? That kind of goes into a personal measure of success. How do you practice a good balance between the two?
I've not been the best at work-life balance,
Right.
and my wife and kids will tell you that. But I think this generation, and I'll mark myself as one of the older people since I'm in my 40s now, I think they have a tougher battle and challenge with
Okay.
work-life balance
Mm-hmm.
than previous generations. And I think the work from home,
Right.
while it's great, it also requires a lot of being plugged in at just non-office hours.
Absolutely.
Right, because of the convenience.
Right.
So I try to exhibit those behaviors when I'm at home and try to be as present as I can.
Right.
And try to do things that, if I'm working late, right, to at least ask them how their day was. Like, what'd you do? What was your favorite part of the day?
Right.
Just simple questions that you can connect with them that
Yeah.
they'll always remember.
Yeah.
So
It is so easy to see an email pop up and you're like, I could just respond to that right
Right.
now. And they would have their answer and, get that out of the way. But I do think it's very important to be present. Let's talk finance.
let's talk it.
I'm excited to hear about this
Yeah.
because I think I could use them. And I don't think that, some of this stuff is a skill or things that you learn anymore. So personal finance tips for all ranges of people.
All ranges.
Yep.
I like it. So I didn't grow up there in my household when I was growing up, and my brother can vouch for this. There was definitely more love than money, and
Okay.
I think that goes for a lot of people,
Right.
right? And so people are probably trying to figure out, navigate their own financial future and financial present at the same, just kind of everything's converging at the same time.
Right.
I listen to a ton of financial podcasts.
Okay.
And so I would say if you don't have any money, you have zero money, and say you have a lot more bills than you do actual income coming in.
Okay.
The first thing I would say to you is take care of your health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone said that on a podcast that I just listened to recently, and I thought that was so valuable because if you can take care of yourself, then in the future you'll pay less on medical bills.
Right.
Hopefully, right? You can't predict the future, but you would potentially be putting yourself in a situation where the probability would be a lot lower that you would have health issues in the future, which would reduce your medical bills. So I would say from a get-go, if you have zero money, nothing in the bank, focus on your health.
Health is wealth.
And I wish if there was anything that I looked back on in the past, it would probably be like health, nutrition that I wish I concentrated more on early on.
Interesting.
Especially coming out of college, because I think, again, getting back to, you think you're invincible, you think your metabolism's always going to be the same, right?
Right.
That quickly changes,
Yes.
especially when you get a desk job. And so I think if you can maintain a healthy lifestyle, it's going to benefit you throughout your life.
Okay.
And then if you're just starting out work, no matter what the dollar value is, invest in a 401k.
Okay.
And I know Dave Ramsey will say pay down debt, completely understand that. But there's a lot of things that happen when you invest in your company's 401k. One, you set up a mindset to invest.
Right.
And if you make it automatic, where it comes out before you actually get the cash, you don't think about it.
Yep.
There's a crazy thing in our brain that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist, right? And so you'll automatically be in that mindset. And then two, you're taking advantage of the time value of money. So I heard, again, another podcast I listened to, that if you're in your 20s, $1 today invested would potentially at retirement age be worth $88.
Okay.
And so that just shows how it compounds over time.
Right.
And you didn't have to invest another single dollar. That dollar turned into 88 when you were retiring. And so I thought that was extremely valuable.
Absolutely.
When you invest in a 401k, your company is probably going to match what you, or they'll have some level of match.
Yeah.
And so you'll automatically get some kind of return on the dollars invested.
Okay. Yeah.
And so if you do nothing, say you do $10, $5, whatever it is, I would at least start setting a goal to invest in your 401k, at least up to the company match.
Nice.
And I know that's probably what everyone will tell you.
Right.
But I think it's extremely valuable.
Cool. So I have a fun question.
Yes.
As a child or like a teenager growing up, were you like good with your money, or were you always like kind of conscious of like saving and stuff, or you kind of had fun and spend money?
Yeah, I was always a saver.
Okay.
And so I would always have a lot more money. My brother, on the other hand, and I think my kids are like this too, my brother was always a spender. If you gave him $5 was spent. My kids are kind of the same way.
Right.
But being a saver is great, but I wasn't the best when I transitioned to my, first professional job. It didn't translate into, I was still saving, but I wasn't investing.
Okay.
And so part of why I really focus on the 401k is because I didn't really take advantage of that my first couple years in the workforce. And so you lose out on a lot of potential growth that you could have in those accounts. And so I speak from a position of, hey, I did this wrong. I want to teach the masses to do it a little bit better than I did. But I do think it's an extremely valuable tool.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm definitely taking mental note. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was such an interesting conversation. And I learned so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Not Your Average Co podcast. And be sure to subscribe and follow us at CSI Company so you don't miss what's next. Bye.
Bye.